this. Okay. So tonight we're going to look at Perfect Brilliant Stillness by David Carse. And some of you may have already read this book, and some of you may know about him. He talks about his experience, his direct experience of a realization of his true nature when he was on a retreat in a jungle in Central America. And he hasn't read, he claims he has not read anything about non-duality. And so he was new to all this. And well, let me tell you what he says. Now I'm going to read excerpts from different chapters just for you to get a flavor of what this person is saying. So,
Can you see?
yeah, I just have to put on my reading glasses. Okay, here he goes. There is only one. There is not ever in any sense many or even two. All perception of distinction and separation, of duality, and therefore of what is known as physical reality is a mind-created illusion of the nature of a dream. What you think you are, a separate individual entity, is part of this illusion. You are not the doer of any action or the thinker of any thought. Events happen, but there is no doer. All there is consciousness. That is what you truly are. Although pursued and understood by so few, this thread of understanding, this perennial wisdom, has endured because it offers no less than everything the answers to life's questions, the true nature of all that is, ultimate meaning and purpose, and the end of suffering. As viewed from human experience and understanding is this: the teaching, the perennial wisdom cannot be directly expressed. Teachers who have come to understand it can point to it, talk around it, suggest ways and means for others to approach it, but cannot directly and clearly state it. This leads many to believe it is not real or not worth pursuing, while to others who are drawn to it, this characteristic of the teaching is the source of much frustration and exasperation. The understanding it is not of this human condition. It comes from outside. It is completely other than or prior to all of human experience and comprehending. But of course, as such, it is inherently incomprehensible. Since it arises outside of human thought and experience, it cannot be put into, limited to, or captured by human concepts and words. While it can be learned, it cannot be taught. While it can in itself be inseen, apperceived, or if you will, intuited, it cannot be directly talked about, or even for that matter, thought of in linguistically structured thoughts or ideas or concept. Does exist, cannot be expressed. Let me go on. Now, he goes on. There is no ego, no trap. This too is illusion, thin as a summer morning mist on a hayfield. The aversion is there in the conditioning of this mind-body apparatus, like the aversion to certain foods or to loud music. This is seen, but it no longer holds any significance. One consciousness streams through all these billions of forms, and what happens in each, including this one, truly is of no significance. There is no choice here, only the pure and choiceless awareness of consciousness streaming. Now, much of what happened in the jungle was experiential, and so could be thought about, remembered, talked about. Deep transformative experience. Nice stuff, transcendent stuff, beautiful, major peak experience stuff. You know well what I mean. Enough to burn the living bejesus out of the David thing. Preparatory could be said of it now. This can be talked about, however hauntingly, and with much abuse of the rules of grammar and the intended meaning of the words. But there then came a time when all that stopped, when the experiencing stopped. And here it gets dicey, because David also stopped. But of course, that's silly. David never was. That snap, that pop, the instantaneous, out of time, in which it is obvious that there is a simple watching, yet not yet knowing the correct invited term is witnessing of that David thing, of what I had thought was me. Not just the body, but all of it, the so-called body, mind, soul, personality, spirit, and realizing instantly that there is none such thing. There is nobody home, nothing there. Obviously, no me, no thing to be a me. And it is even more obvious, not me watching or witnessing. The witnessing fills the universe, and there is not a thing anywhere. There is nowhere and no things and no beings and no entities. There is only this, thisness, awareness, and that is what I is. Okay, so let me just get you now. Now he's quoting Rumi. Listen, out beyond ideas of right and wrongdoing, there is a field, and I will meet you there. Now, David Carse is talking. The ultimate unified field beyond all concepts of dualism, where I and you flow together. I is not David. You is not you. Neither is, and I meet you there, completely, with nothing lacking, because the I am that you are is the I am that I am. I'll repeat that sentence. The I am that you are is the I am that I am, right? The same I am that you feel when when you feel yourself and you exist and you have the sense, I am. That's the same I am in you, and that's the same I am in me. He goes on. The human conditioning, emotions, feelings, thought patterns, all part of this world that have been pulled over our eyes to hide us from the truth. The effect is that we can never see clearly, only, quote, as in a glass darkly, close quote. Always fuzzy thinking, always missing the obvious. All these forms come and go. All will soon pass. The frustration, the sadness, the wanting things to be different, they too arise in the quiet expanse of accepting awareness between the thoughts. They will never stop arising. There is no stopping them, and indeed, no need to try. There is just watching, accepting what is. It is the judging that makes us miserable. In the middle, in the jungle, the great quest to find my purpose, my path, and above all, the way I can help, falls to the ground and disintegrates laughing. It is taking the dream to be real, which creates the emphasis on finding a purpose or meaning, with the constant asking why or how. Everything takes on importance. This seeming importance is what keeps us involved with the understanding that all so-called human behavior is consciousness acting through these instruments, and there is no independent doer of any action. This subject becomes moot, and the judgment that there is something not okay and needing to be changed subsides. What happens through these body-mind things happens. If there is learning to happen, it will happen. Sometimes there is not. Sometimes change happens. Sometimes it does not. Sometimes such change follows insight. Sometimes it precedes it. The perceived chain of cause and effect and the mandate to better ourselves are seen through as parts of the dream game. There is no thing to attain, nowhere to go. There is only acceptance of what is on the deepest possible level. And even that only happens if it happens. If one is not ready to hear this, it will not be heard, no matter how well articulated. When one is ready to hear it, it can be heard in passing by someone on the street, and it will strike home. When there is a body-mind organism in which this is ready to happen, a certain word or phrase in a certain context can be like in the Zen story, the sound of the pebble against the earthenware pot, which causes the cascade failure of the mind and the occurrence of realization, which is the only possible end to suffering. The surrender into complete acceptance of what is as the perfect unfolding in consciousness is a primary characteristic of waking up. It can be found over and over in the writings, and all of the teachings points to it. Acceptance is very deep, is infinite, and it starts here in your own heart. Whatever arises is accepted. If resentment arises, there is acceptance that resentment is happening in this body mind. If there then comes a layer of judgment that the resentment should not be happening, then the acceptance can go deeper to accept that the judgment is happening. If there is another layer of feeling bad about yourself, perhaps, or an unhappiness that you are the kind of person in whom resentment arises, or feeling bitter or hopeless or whatever, then that too can be included in the infinite acceptance. If there is an urge to be more mindful or attentive to the root causes of resentment, then there is acceptance that such a motivation is arising. There is no end to the acceptance. And then it extends outward to events and situations and other people. Deep acceptance at all levels of whatever arises, even if it is not liked, even the not liking itself. Meanwhile, of course, there is simply being. Things happen in your life, good things, not so good things. There is watching this happen. Again, if emotions arise, then they too are arising in consciousness. And there is watching them arise. If thoughts or judgments arise, then there is watching these also, always knowing this too shall pass. No assumptions need be made. Nothing needs to be labeled or held on to. Now, sometimes the phrase, the understanding, is used obliquely to mean that which is understood. Now, in that case, that which is understood is precisely what is not of the dream and pierces the dream at the no time, no place instant of awakening. But the occurrence of the total understanding in the case of any specific body-mind organism is by definition an occurrence which appears to happen in the dream to a dream character and is as such a part of the unfolding of the dream. Now he goes on. In seminary, for a while he was in seminary, I studied enough Catholic theology and New Testament redaction to know that centuries of well-intended parsing of what the original visionary might have meant rarely comes close to the actual understanding. It certainly seems, for example, that Jesus of Nazareth may very well have lived and taught and died without any of his sannyasis, at least not the ones who left the official written record, really getting what he was trying to express. What they passed on as Christianity has just about nothing at all to do with the understanding, which appears to have almost certainly occurred in Jesus's case. East or West, generations of well-meaning monks can pretty well garble the message. I am no scholar of these things of Advaita Vedanta, Buddhism, or Sanskrit, and there is neither the ability nor the interest to argue the fine points which are so significant to scholars. It would appear that the job description here, at least at the moment, is to describe within the context of the conditioning of this body-mind character what the understanding is here. This may or may not necessarily correspond to what the scholars have worked out over the centuries. Within the parameters of the dream, seekers and teachers do the best they can. But in the understanding, there is no birth or death, no coming or going, and the occasions and forms were there, was seeing all, and always I, clearly present. Look within, unimaginable, perfect beauty in the still, silent heart. The one perfect, blazing, radiant jewel, all that is, what you are, true self with a capital S. Look and see in the brilliance. Nothing to do to know this. Do not think, and this is known. When the mind is still, when the mind is not other than the heart, still, silent, radiant heart. Look within. Don't miss this. Don't live a life not seeing, not knowing this ultimate blinding beauty. Look and be. Do not think. Look within. You will know who you are. Questions, comments?
Wow. Such a radical deconstruction of the personal image-bound mind. The deep acceptance, just no matter what comes, a deep acceptance.
Well, it's also interesting that he's saying this is all a dream and we are all dream characters playing out our parts. But that is not our true nature and who we truly are. And he says that one of the ways to break through this is the deep and total acceptance of whatever presents itself, whatever arises. And you know, he's also says here, whatever happens was meant to happen. It had to happen. But also he points to the watching. And you see, it's so, I think it's really so powerful when he says, let me put on my other glasses to see this. When he says here, bear with me, I'm going to find it. The unfolding of, wait. Oh, must find it because he says it. Of course, as I tried to find it. What happens through these body-mind things happens. If there is learning to happen, it will happen. Sometimes there is not. Sometimes change happens. Sometimes it does not. Sometimes such change follows insight. Sometimes it precedes it. The perceived change of cause and effect and the mandate to better ourselves are seen through as parts of the dream game. The surrender into complete acceptance of what is as the perfect unfolding in consciousness is a primary characteristic of waking up. Whatever arises is accepted. If resentment arises, there is acceptance that resentment is happening in this body mind. If there then comes a layer of judgment that the resentment should not be happening, then the acceptance can go deeper to accept that it's the judgment that's happening. If there is another layer of feeling bad about yourself, perhaps, or an unhappiness that you are the kind of person in whom resentment arises, or feeling bitter or hopeless or whatever, then that too can be included in the infinite acceptance. So in other words, whatever arises, whatever presents itself, freely, spontaneously, no force, it's just arising. And to see that without any judgment, with just a total acceptance that it's just arising, it's an object arising. And you are not an object. That's what he says here. You are, he calls it all that is. You are all that is. So, for this particular person, it seemed to have been just a spontaneous awakening.
Mhm.
And that happens. But for most of us, there is some preparation that needs to be done. And what he's talking about here in watching and accepting is what Krishnamurti always talks about, choiceless awareness. Just being choicelessly aware of whatever comes up. And going a step deeper is not fighting against it, right?
So if I continually lie and manipulate people and cause them pain, and I witness that arising, I don't do anything about it. I accept it fully. I don't make a commitment to change. I don't make a judgment that it's good or bad. I just see that's what's presently arising. And since I'm not going to judge it or blame it or correct it, it might just continually keep arising.
Well, but remember, this in the seeing is the doing. So when one sees that arise and there's no judgment about what's arising and no judgment about yourself that it happens to be arising in you, then there's like an automatic pulling the plug on it. Right? I mean, if you see an anger arising and you don't start getting on with it and justifying it and
Hold on a second. Well, I may be able to pull the plug on it, or I may not.
well, then you have to see yourself not being able
That's
to.
right. So I may not be able to pull the plug on it.
All right, so
Right.
that's right.
And and I might continue to be an ornery, unpleasant, manipulative person. And every time I try to watch it and I try to pull the plug on it, I may not be able to. So I might just continually be this speck of awareness that shows up as a manipulative, conniving.
Yes, but then the question is, then why are you even watching? The only reason you really want to watch, it seems to me, is that you want to understand what's going on. You want to understand this me. That's like a veil over you. Otherwise, what's the point?
Well,
If you want to be an ordinary, mean-spirited person, then be it. Fine. But then what are you watching? The reason what?
I was going to say, you talk about ornery, mean-spirited people. There are lots of folks, they don't see themselves that way. They see themselves as perfectly normal. I'm a rotten, miserable son of a bitch, and I don't know it. Everybody else knows it, but you don't know it. So I think part of what's being said here, I think, is that there has to be, and it doesn't necessarily have to happen. I mean, it's not I don't know how to phrase it, but a miracle has to happen. And the miracle is that you become aware of not being satisfied. If something is wrong, you sense it, but you don't know what it is. This guy that we're talking about, he sensed that, so he went to a mission. He went to Latin America, then he was also in a seminary or something. He was looking for something, and he was looking for something. You look for something when something is missing. If it's not missing, you're not looking. So something that has to be a prerequisite to it, I think. So that, like myself, there was a point at which I got disgusted with what I thought I was, or what I perceive myself to be. And as you get into this thing, then you see, well, there's something more going on. But I think that after you reach that point, you also have to get to a point where you've got to get, I think, you've got to get to, something like Wheeler talks about, maybe, where you have to develop, you got to develop a platform to start all this stuff. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense. You got to question, who am I? What am I? And if you can't do that, then, you can read about pistons going up and down inside of a chamber, but if you don't understand the concept of internal combustion, you have no idea what the hell you're dealing with.
Right.
So I kind of feel that to get an understanding of what he's talking about, you would have gotten to the point where you realize that there is such a thing as a center, a me, an ego, whatever you want to call it, an I. And that's what you're living through. And that's the dream, in a sense. It's not real.
Right.
And if you can't get to that point somewhere around there, so that you can start seeing that when you do get angry, when things happen, and let's say they're negative things, then you can see that what's happening, why they're becoming painful to me, is because I'm fighting it. I don't want to accept what it is. And in that not acceptance, I'm beginning to realize that by not accepting it, it's not that I'm ornery, it's that I can't deal with it because I'm not dealing with reality. I'm trying to deal with what I think it should be.
Yes.
And how the hell is that going to happen? It's not going to happen
Right.
because
Okay.
it ain't what is.
That's right. That's right. That's
Did
not what it.
anyone else have a reaction to the reading they want to share?
Yeah, I came in a little bit late. We're reading from David Carse.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, Bill.
Okay, good. He mentions, or maybe you have mentioned that for this enlightenment experience that, can be quick and dramatic and so forth, but for others, it requires sort of a preparation,
Right.
may have been the word you used. I'm
Yes.
just wondering, what does that preparation look like? Is that just coming back to the present moment, time after time? Is that the preparation that?
Yes, it's purifying the mind. And so what does that mean? That means, yes, bringing ourselves back to the present. And the way we bring ourselves back to the present is watching, witnessing this me that we think we are, because this me is the past. You see, we live not in the present. We really live in the past. And everything that we see, the things we do, it's all filtered through our past conditioning, our preferences, our opinions, our beliefs, our judgments, and that's all coming from the past. If we are here in this now moment, we are free, open, free. But that's not the reality. The reality is that we live through a me. So the preparation is watching the operation of this me, seeing how it works moment by moment, seeing what it does to trigger angers and frustrations and pleasures and wantings and graspings, desires,
That's the choice.
fears.
That's the choiceless awareness, being choicelessly aware of
Yes.
all that.
Yes, that's what he was
Yeah.
saying here. He didn't use the word
Right.
exactly choice, but that's exactly what he's saying here.
Mhm.
And in order to do that, in order to prepare that way, I can't make a there can't be a judgment of the actions of that me. If there is a judgment of that, then I'm not being choicelessly aware.
Right.
Then I'm back in the me.
Mhm.
So
The-
it's, right, go ahead.
The experience, the enlightenment experience he had in the jungle. How important is that for any of us to have that sort of experience where the world goes upside down, where suddenly there's a clear seeing into our essential nature, you might say. How important is that? Or that's not going to happen to the vast majority of us. And it's just more
Probably.
important to
Right.
moment by moment be aware, as you were just describing.
That's right.
He
You
said it's a
serendipitous.
serendipitous thing.
That's right.
It's not deserved. It just happened.
Right.
It just
Right.
happened. So, but the point is that why are we even on this path, on this quest? Why? Well, if it's to gain something, then we're back in the me.
Yeah.
So what is this really all about? Well, on one level, you can't help it. I see it as being called to this. It's almost like consciousness is calling.
Mhm.
But what
Mhm.
else? What else? It's wanting. There's a sense that there can be a life lived in peace, in harmony, with true compassion.
Yeah.
And there's a realization that our own lives and the lives of the people we love and the lives of people around us are not lived that way. Most lives are lived in suffering. And some people, unfortunately, suffer so much more than others. So to end that, to want to end that in ourselves and hopefully have a ripple effect so it could help somebody else as well, is what this is about. Is there going to be some great awakening? Who knows? Maybe it's all part of grace. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't happen, so it doesn't happen.
I don't know if it's so much about getting something as much as it is for me of getting rid of something.
Yes.
You know, getting rid of this ego, getting rid of this power image that I've been developing all these many years. So our conditioning is that maybe getting rid of something isn't as dramatic as getting something, because we're conditioned to think that that acquisitiveness, accumulation, getting something is very good, very positive.
Right.
You're
So,
right.
And we think we don't have it. For some reason, we think we don't have it.
Correct.
But we do have it.
Yeah.
That's
I
yeah,
think
so yeah, so you know, to me, something comes along and it gets you to recognize that you are suffering when you start looking at yourself, and gradually developing enough information and gathering enough pointers to see what it's pointing at, and it's pointing at me, what I look at in the mirror. Then, you know, to me, that's very positive. That's something to devoutly to be wished.
Rogine, did you want to say something?
yeah, I was just going to say, like, well, a couple of things. First, that, like, our whole culture is telling us the opposite of what you're saying.
Yeah, sure.
You just need to add to and get more and more and more. And but yeah, I do appreciate that you talked about that extra layer. Like, that if I'm angry, then I can be angry at myself for being angry, and
right.
go on and on.
Mm-hmm.
And accepting that, like that complete acceptance. And but you know, anytime I'm in resistance, because the opposite of acceptance is being at war with something, like some kind of resistance. And it's the opposite of peace. But I guess that's what keeps calling me back to it, is when I get there, and I can get there, but I can't stay there. So it's practice, you know. But it does feel like relief and so much peace compared to the battle of, oh, now this, like, and gotta get better, like, and gotta improve this, and too much of this, not enough of this.
Right.
And that's never going to go anywhere, is what I'm learning. This is my first time talking, and thank you for having me. This is it's beautiful that everyone's here pointing at the ultimate truth. But for me, I had learned that me observing the feelings and the thoughts and the doubts just became another trick of the ego for me.
Yeah.
So it was almost like me observing
Right.
the anger or the excitement or everything. That was just another loop of the ego. But you can even take that layer away, and then what's beneath that? What's beneath that is exactly what the readings you're speaking of are pointing to, that stillness.
Yes, yes. But yes, you're right. Most of us observe or watch the workings of the me with the me.
Right.
And that's a dead end. That's why really the phrase choiceless awareness is so right on. Because when there's a witnessing without choice, without comment, without editorializing, without judging, when there's just a direct seeing, That's the watching we're talking about.
Right. And that's the watching that has the solution in it. And that's the watching. The doing is the watching.
The seeing is the doing.
Yeah.
And what is it really at that moment of choiceless awareness that sees? Awareness,
Mhm.
what your true nature is. Pure, non-conceptual awareness or consciousness. Some people use it interchangeably. Just aware,
Mhm.
awareness. And awareness in itself has no judgment. It's not an entity that judges. And awareness is not a thought, right? That's the beauty of it, of
Yeah,
it. It's not even an it.
Right.
Thinking is only done by the ego.
Right.
I mean, so whenever, so that to me is a clue too, that helps me to understand what's going on. When I find myself thinking about something, thinking about an emotion, I'm angry, I'm this, and then I know that it's the ego that's doing it. And I know that if I'm looking at it through those eyes, it's not what is. I'm absolutely convinced of that. There's no question in my mind. I can't get to the field where all the volcanoes are going off and the explosions of all these great feelings, but it really does help to understand how this thing works.
Yeah.
And you catch yourself doing it. You know, that Christian Murney thing, moment to moment with choiceless awareness,
Yeah.
just moment to moment. That I'm beginning to understand is really the key to self-knowledge. You just watch yourself when you can, and as often as you can. So
Yeah.
One of the things that I find I can get really attached to is how I feel. Like if I wake up, say, and I'm feeling under the weather, I'm really tired, and it's like, oh, now I'm gonna feel tired all day, or I'm gonna I want to feel good. But if I remind myself, like, so what? You're tired, like just completely accepted. It's okay. Like it's such a relief to not fight with just the way I feel, like moment to moment.
Right.
yeah, that's beautiful. You're back into what you should be. You shouldn't be feeling that way. You're supposed to jump out of bed like, I don't know, Mrs. America, or whatever the hell it is, with a shield and a flag, and it doesn't work that way.
But yeah, Rogine, that's just the noting of what's present, right? Without having a judgment or wishing it were otherwise. Noting what's present.
Other words
Yes.
on with the way I feel. It's just like, this is what it is.
Right.
That's
If I could just comment on Hugo and Bill, you guys both spoke about, the fireworks and volcanoes going off and these extreme epiphanies of enlightenment. And this is something that I've been searching for for a long time. And something that I've realized is that's more ego stuff. The ego is the one that wants these things.
right.
Your true self could care either way because it's there and it's present regardless. So that's like, I think Alan Watts might have said it. It's like trying to catch water with a fishnet. You
Right.
can't do that.
Right.
So just be mindful of the ego slipping back through the back door onto itself.
Yes.
It's a loop.
Yes. The work of the ego can be gross and obvious, and it can be just as subtle and unseen, and it's there. But that's why choiceless awareness shines the light on it. And you are that light.
Yeah, I think in comment to Rogine's comment about being tired or whatever, I've learned through my Buddhism, Zen Buddhism, that if that's so, then just be the tired Buddha. Just be the anxious Buddha, or whatever's occurring at that moment, you are still Buddha. So it's all good.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes. That's right.
What?
Mary?
You know, Paulie, I was just remembering that you used to say, you gotta want it like a man whose hair is on fire wants water. You gotta want it. What about that? You know, when you're seeking, suffering, there are people who never want it and never feel it. But what about that person who wants it like his hair is on fire?
Who wants it?
Who wants it? He says, yeah.
Well, yes, so
I mean, who is the person that's wanting it?
the who,
Right.
right, who is it that
Who
wants,
is that wanting it?
right, right. However, if there's a realization that there is a deep wanting of it, then with that comes an earnestness, a seriousness
Yeah.
that takes it all seriously,
Right.
right? Not with pressure,
Right.
not with force, not with effort,
Mhm.
Right.
but really takes it seriously.
Right.
And then I think what David Carse said here. So if that's to happen, that will happen.
Yeah. But there
And
is a wanting.
Right. If
It
that's
may
to
be or
happen.
may not be.
It may not happen. It may happen.
Maybe a proactive openness is a way of putting it.
Mhm.
Not by direct will or direct,
Mhm.
I am this and I want that, but it's more than a passive openness. It's some sort of in some sense, a proactive openness. I have no idea what I'm talking about, but I think.
Yeah, yeah.
No, but yes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's a real good pointer.
Yeah.
There has to be, that's what Jean Klein always talks about, that element of openness. And in that openness, there's not a me who wants to be open.
Right.
There's just a sense of openness, a receptiveness.
Yeah. Somebody was telling me this week about this image from the mandala, and it was when we're in reaction, we're kind of closed off because we're in defensive mode. And when we're proactive, it's like the open gesture, which
Mhm.
was just exactly described. Because
That's
I couldn't really figure out how the word proactive
Right.
related to what we were saying tonight, but proactive openness is,
yes. Yes.
yeah.
Right.
The openness might also imply or mean something to the effect that you get the I out of the way. And when you get the I out of the way, you're open.
Yeah,
Well, they say, by negation,
that's
Right.
right.
negate everything, not
Well,
this, not
That's
that.
very powerful for me.
Yes, negating.
Well,
Right.
that's why he says here in his book, the realization was that David doesn't exist.
Right. See, because the way I understand it, my understanding is you can't be adding, you can't be accumulating, you can't be building up something. You've already done that, or I've already
Right,
done that.
right.
I'm in the process now of deconstruction
Mhm.
and tearing that thing apart, that I, little by little, piece by piece, moment by moment. So to me, I don't know how I got on it, but just stumbling on the idea of it's not something that there's nothing to get, there's nothing to gain. It's that I've got something that I've got to get rid of that's preventing me from realizing, that the present awareness is what's making all this possible.
Right.
I am this, I am not that.
That's right.
Mhm. Well, this was a good reading. I liked hearing
Yes.
David Carse.
Yes.
It was a nice change, a
I
nice change of voice.
yes, I really strongly recommend this book. If you can get a copy of it. If not, I think you might be able to get an ebook on Google. If you Google it, you might get a free ebook of it. It's really very worthwhile reading. It truly is.
Eva, isn't it still on Audible? Remember,
Yes,
on Audible, you
Oh,
can get
yes.
it because it's many hours. It's about 16 hours, and it took a long time. Every time I go for a walk, I put my phone on and I listen to it, and it's brilliant to listen to.
Yeah.
yes,
Because you get little glimpses of it.
yes,
Right.
And this
yes.
way, maybe you get through a chapter of it and you can kind of really see how he got to where he was. So through Audible,
Yes, it's
Right.
on Audible.
yeah, and it's free. So
Good.
Great, Bernie. Yes, yes, it's very worthwhile listening to. Right, reading and listening.
And it's read by that actor, right?
Karen
Terrence,
Stamp.
Karen Stamp, yeah.
right.
So it's
right.
very effective.
I think it's also now on YouTube as a podcast
Wow.
being read by someone else. So
Oh,
there are ways that you can get this, really. I don't even know if the book is still available. It
Right.
might be, but
I think you can download his book on his website.
good. Okay, there you go.
Okay, well,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you all for coming.
see you next week, guys.
Love you.
Very
See you all next
good.
week.
Love you.
Bye-bye.
Buonanotte.
Bye. Buonanotte.
I don't know.
Bella.
Bella.
Bye, Bella.
Bye, dog.
I love it.